All right, week 4 waiver wire. We're talking running backs, wide receivers, and we got some quarterback streamers. So the first and most obvious player is Achane, and he did say wants his name pronounced like that. Obvious, like huge 50-point week. We don't really have to tell you. He's the RB5 on the season, and he's only really played one game other than, I think, one carry in week 2. He was a healthy scratch in week 1, so he could have been dropped in your league, even though he was pretty much drafted everywhere. I think if your league is somewhat active, he could have been dropped after that, although they're going to be regretting it now. So if you need a running back to start immediately, to me, he's like a spend all your fab guy.
I would unload the clip if you need a running back because no offense provides this much upside. And he looks
I will say, yeah, he looks really good. Obviously, super fast, which fits their scheme perfectly. I don't think he's going to be a workhorse. I think Mostert's going to be involved as long as he's healthy. But they've proven now that they can both get it done. If each of them can get almost 50 points, then if we can settle for 15 points a week each of them, I'd be fine with that. Don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I think it might be a little back and forth on a more regular week. But Jeff Wilson does come back from IR, not this week, but he's eligible the next week. We don't know if he'll be back. But if he is, to me, he really is a short yardage guy. He doesn't fit the same mold that the other two do, where they're the home run hitters. Achane ripped off a huge touchdown run. So he can get that done even with Jeff Wilson in the lineup.
Yep. All right, next up, that leads us to Joshua Palmer / Quentin Johnston. It was confirmed today that Mike Williams did, unfortunately, tear his ACL. So you're going to have to pick up these guys because they should slide right in a pretty good offense. To me, if I'm needing an immediate start, I'm getting Josh Palmer. No doubt about it, because we saw what he did last year when both Keenan and Mike Williams missed time. They trust him. He's succeeded in this offense before. If you just need a stash, like if you're set at receiver right now and you just want to see what happens, I'm fine with stashing Quentin Johnston. He's actually a lot more rostered, as his roster percentage is up to 51%. So in some of your leagues, he's probably not even available. But he's more of a stash to me. He really hasn't shown any promise. All the reports say Joshua Palmer's been playing over him pretty much this entire season in every set. So I would expect to see a little bit more snaps from him, but I don't think you can really trust him anytime soon for fantasy. So Joshua Palmer, he's been excellent last year when they missed time. So he would be the pickup for me. And he's only rostered at 5% of leagues. So he's basically he's available everywhere, essentially.
Yeah, if you need a flex, he's proven that he can be that flex level player, but not any more than that. Based on what we saw last year, obviously you still got Keenan in the lineup. Josh Palmer is not going to be a number one guy regardless. So even if Keenan does go out, I don't think that helps Josh Palmer that much. I think his role, what he's going to get now, is going to be what he's going to get. Quentin Johnston, yeah, I think he has a lot more upside than Josh Palmer. I mean, obviously he's a first round rookie. He's got the sort of he should have the ability to do similar things to what Mike Williams did, but again, we've never seen it, so we can't promise anything there. It's really just a stash and wait, and if he starts to get more involved and prove himself in the offense, then he could have more upside than Josh Palmer. So
last season, with Josh Palmer active and Keenan Allen active, so 3 games without Mike Williams, Josh Palmer had 8 for 106 and 2, 5 for 56, and 7 for 60. He had a 22.6% target share. If he gets anywhere close to those numbers, you're going to be beyond happy.
So to me, yeah, he's a really good PPR flex. Like, that's just what he's going to be. And if you need help, obviously a lot of players going down, you might need a flex. So next up we have Tank Dell or Nathaniel Dell and Robert Woods. So the Houston Texans receivers 2 and 3, I guess, but really it's just a huge rotation here. It's not like in the first few weeks we saw them as sort of the 2 and 3 options with Woods at 2 and Tank Dell at the 3, but Tank Dell's getting more involved, and he is that home run hitter who can get a big touchdown, as we saw. Obviously 145 yards is huge, and he can hit that big touchdown to just make his stat line look incredible. So if you need the weekly upside, to me, Tank Dell is going to provide more of that, whereas Robert Woods is A veteran player who can get you some targets. If you just need some guaranteed production in your lineup, and he is a little bit less rostered than Tank Dell at 36%, whereas Tank Dell is nearly 50%. If you need a flex, he's averaging 8 targets a game so far through the first 3 weeks. Nico Collins does look to be the number one guy, but this week it ended up being that, Tank had the big touchdown, so he had a bigger fantasy day. So with CJ Stroud throwing for about 300 yards a game, there's going to be, a lot to go around, and it seems like it's concentrating on these 3 guys.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this offense is a fantasy goldmine right now. CJ Stroud's looking great. They're having to pass. Yeah, they're having to pass, and, they're just getting targets. So next up is going to be Romeo Doubs, 52% rostered, so available in about half of leagues. Another touchdown this week. It's apparent Jordan Love does like him in the red zone, as he has 3 touchdowns now the past 3 games or 2 games. Christian Watson should, emphasis on should, be back this week, so it remains to be seen how that's going to affect him. But, I mean, if you just need a flex, you need depth at this point. It's hard to find someone with the weekly floor/touchdown upside that Doubs has shown. So in a fab stance, I'm not spending a ton, maybe 5% if you need a flex. If you're desperate at receiver, though, I would much rather pick up like Joshua Palmer, just because I feel like their offense is going to pass more. Because the Packers should add Aaron Jones back and Christian Watson back, which probably is going to be their number 1 and 2 receiving options. So I'm not sure how much is actually going to be left for the rest of the people there, but Dobbs should still be rostered nonetheless.
Right. I think he should be rostered in pretty much every league at this point unless we see Jaden Reed surpass him or something like that.
Yep.
All right, next up, we're going to talk about some more running backs because I know that's probably what people need the most. So we're going to talk about some options. Jaylen Warren might not be available in your league, but he could get dropped. 63% rostered. For me, he was dropped in a league last week. I put in a waiver claim for him and got him, and I'm stashing him. You dropped him?
Yep.
Well, I had an extra slot, so I picked him up. I think he's got a decent amount of upside, and he's averaging more yards per touch. So in that backfield, so he could surpass Najee Harris, but we really don't. There's no way to know. But again, he's a really high upside handcuff. Another guy, Zach Charbonnet, owned in 60% of leagues, but easily could have been dropped last week or could be dropped this week because he's not getting a lot of production. He's not somebody you can throw into your lineup. People having injuries on their roster easily could be dropped. And I could totally understand that. I'm pretty sure I dropped him in a league. But if you have the room on your roster, yeah, a lot of people have to because you got to make moves. There's so many injuries going around. With the concussion protocol, a lot of players will be ruled out. He's a guy that I do like on the end of my roster, though, because he's got a lot of contingent upside. And that's why we're going to talk about a lot of these running backs who are the RB2 on their team. It's because you want the upside on your bench. If you've got an extra slot, like let's say you move somebody to IR and then you have a freed up slot, to me, I'm not going to pick up somebody that, they could get you 5-10 points if I don't need it. I'm going to pick up the guy that could hit the upside. Whereas like Zach Charbonnet, obviously on the Seahawks offense, if something happened to Kenneth Walker, he's going to be very, very valuable, and he will be the number 1 guy on next week's waiver show if something were to happen like that. You know what I'm saying? So you want that upside. He did see his season high in snaps at 43% and touches at 10. Not crazy, but again, it's a good trend. And Kenneth Walker, although he is doing really well, to me, that just proves that there's going to be some value in that offense if you were to go down. So another handcuff option, although both of these guys are about 60% rostered.
Yep. Continuing the trend, we have Ezekiel Elliot at 51% rostered. He had 17 touches in week 3. So he is your grinding, your bruiser back. Any game that I feel like the Patriots are at least neutral or winning, Zeke is going to get a lot of work as they try to drain the clock and everything. And then in games when they're trying to play catch up, that is when you'll see more Ramondre Stevenson. But if Stevenson was to get hurt, Zeke would obviously get more value as he would become the workhorse for that backfield. Not sure how good he is, but I mean, if you have a running back that's getting all the work for a team, it's a valuable fantasy asset. Next is going to be Elijah Mitchell, who again, this is a Christian McCaffrey handcuff. The Niners are a running back goldmine when it comes to fantasy. Pretty much whoever the starter is will have value. So if McCaffrey gets hurt, which we've seen many times in the past, Elijah Mitchell could be, an easy RB2 or better fill in for him. Kendre Miller, who just played his first game this week, he looked pretty good on a per touch basis, but didn't get tons of work. Alvin Kamara is suspected back this week, but with Jamal Williams on IR, I still think there's enough role and enough room for 2 running backs, kind of like they had Kamara and Ingram of years past. So, and who knows, Kamara could get injured at any minute, so it's always good to have that guy.
Yeah, I don't think Kamara was ever going to be a workhorse anymore, so they're always going to have that role, and they have historically too, so Kendre Miller should have a role there. To go back a little bit, to me, if Achane is not available, Zeke is the one guy where you could start him in a super desperate situation if none of the other guys that are startable are available. He did get 80 yards last week, and again, he can also be involved in the passing game, so I think there's some upside there, especially like the contingency upside. And then Elijah Mitchell is one of the highest upside handcuffs in the league, and the fact that he's under 50% rostered is surprising to me. I think really it's just his injury history that has him down that low. And we also have a few other handcuff/backups. Rico Dowdle, he got a touchdown this week and looked pretty good when given the ball. So I think, again, if something happened to Pollard, then he should be the guy. So we're only really going to tell you guys that we think have a chance to become the guy if it were to have an injury, because not every backup has that situation. There's a lot of situations where if someone were to go down, then it would just be in a nasty split. And so we're looking for guys that we think are the clear next guy up.
Mm-hmm. So I'll just go over the last 2 guys quickly. That would be Tyjae Spears at 33% rostered. If anything's to happen to Derrick Henry, Tyjae Spears would slide into that workhorse role. As we've seen for multiple games this year already, he is out snapping Derrick Henry, which is concerning for Derrick Henry managers. The fact that a rookie in his 3rd game has already out snapped him 2 out of 3 times. But if something were to happen to Derrick Henry, you could just slide him right on in. And then Tank Bigsby, same thing. If something were to happen to ETN, you could just slide him right on in. Those are just lottery ticket handcuffs. Neither provide ton of standalone value to play, but it's just a lottery ticket. You hold it, and if the starter goes down, you already have his backup.
Yep. All right, we got the Carolina pass catchers, Adam Thielen and DJ Chark. Adam Thielen had a huge week, and really it is the fact that Bryce Young did not play. He's considered week to week, so we don't know if Andy Dalton will start any more games. So I'm not spending a lot of fab on these guys, although they are rostered. I think Thielen's rostered in about 60% of leagues, and Chark more like 30%. So Chark is available in more leagues, but to me, he's a deep league flex if you need it. But I think you're in a lot of leagues, you should have some of these better options either on your bench or on the waiver. Thielen is a little bit more interesting because even last week with Bryce Young, I think he had 9 targets, which is really good. So he's a speculative ad. Again, not guys I'm spending a ton of fab on, but if we do see that Bryce Young misses another game, then I'm definitely going to flex him.
Yep, absolutely. So let's move on to QB streamers we like this week. First up is going to be Russell Wilson. He gets to play the Chicago Bears, which have been fantasy gold for quarterbacks as their defense is absolutely atrocious, which is surprising, but Russ has actually looked pretty decent. I know he just got beat 70-20, but fantasy-wise, I think he's a top 5 quarterback on the year, if I'm not mistaken. So I feel like you could fire him up against Chicago. Maybe they have a bad taste in their mouth from that beatdown they just got, and they want to come out and show something against the Bears.
I mean, they're always trailing, and he's always throwing, and he can hit a deep ball every now and then. He's done it pretty much every game so far. Another possible streamer, Brock Purdy, owning about 60% of leagues, playing Arizona at home, which is good. And we think that the Cardinals are a little bit better than most people think, especially if you go look at these. I mean, just go look at the quarterbacks who've played against him. But with Brock Purdy, to me, the matchup doesn't matter nearly as much. It's not like it's a shutdown defense or anything. So I think that, especially at home, that the system is going to just keep working and that Brock Purdy should have his normal 200 to 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he doesn't really throw a ton of interceptions.
Yep. Next up would be Geno Smith. He gets the Giants. Not much else to say about that.
Okay.
It's a great matchup, and he has great weapons.
Yep. And then Jimmy Garoppolo is our deeper league start. If you're really stuck for options and those 3 guys aren't available, obviously check for your top 10 type options. But if all those guys are gone, then Jimmy Garoppolo is an option because he's playing the Chargers. And those games always seem to end up with like 60 points scored this year. So it just seems to be sort of a back and forth when you play the Chargers. And Garoppolo has Devontae Adams, who he seems to be peppering with targets, which should be good. And he can get you a couple touchdowns. And that will do it for our Week 4 waivers. If you guys enjoyed the content, consider subscribing. It helped us out a ton. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. Anyways, we've been the Fantasy Bros, and we're out.